These canyon walls carry my tune. The only one to hear my song are the coyotes and the wolves. But if I drink enough of this flask, I can hear them sing your song too.
What's up, and welcome to the Bluff Creek Project Podcast. I'm Tate Hieronymus. I'm here with two, I want to say friends, but I don't know at this point. Aleks Petakov and Eli Watson. How are you guys?
Oh,
I think that's an accurate description.
I thought we were doing a different show.
No,
Kate, I thought we were doing your other podcast.
No, this is for the BCP podcast.
Oh, hello. It's great to be back.
Bluff Crack Pipe.
Bluff Crack Fight podcast.
Oh,
Project.
boy.
Just kidding. Do you want to restart that? Or are you good?
No, I like this.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
No, funny enough, I talked to Leiterman the other day.
He called me too.
Yeah, I had him on my show last week. Yeah, it was last week.
Let's call him right now.
He was my
Do you
most recent
remember?
guest. Had a good conversation with him. Nice guy.
Let's get Robert back on here. You said.
Yeah, let's get Robert here, and then we'll ask him about our individual conversations with him. Be like, do you remember? Do you remember when I said this?
That'd be.
Right.
I don't know how well that would work, but I mean, we could try. Well, guys, we were just recently on. I guess you could call it a sabbatical. You can call it a work.
I don't think it was very restful.
Definitely was not. I'd say a series of rugged expeditions. That's what I'd call it.
A sabbatical. What in the world?
I mean, for me, it was a sabbatical. Sometimes, but like, okay, who wants to go and talk about it first? Just either one.
I'll say something. So, yeah, we were there we were in Florida and in Georgia, and we were filming 5 episodes / productions of Small Town Monsters Beyond the Trail, which we have just released the first episode on YouTube, which is called Beyond the Trail, the Sawgrass Skunk Ape. Been pretty well received so far, as far as these kind of Bigfoot documentaries go. We've gotten a lot of cool comments about it. A lot of people didn't know about the Florida history down in the Everglades. So yeah, we did 5 films, and each one focuses sort of on a different area of that. Well, 4 about Florida, one's about Georgia, but we pretty much cover the whole state of Florida, from the Everglades to Central Florida to kind of northern Central Florida, and then the Panhandle as well. Yep. Go ahead.
Oh. Eli, if you want to.
I'm getting my ice cream delivered to me.
So
no way.
For those who don't know,
it's
what's up,
Seth.
Seth? We got Seth. He's making a guest appearance real quick, just off camera.
He works for me. He delivers ice cream to me.
Oh, nice hat, Eli. Eli, why he scarfs that down? Do you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about it too?
Sure, yeah. The Florida trip was approximately 3 weeks long, and I lived an entire lifetime in that 3 weeks. And when I came back home, I didn't know how to adjust back to modern life, and I still don't. Let's see, other things to say about Florida. It was very long. I remember at one point thinking, I don't want to do this anymore, and then realizing there was still a week and a half left in the trip.
You can tell us that.
I really remember.
I kept it to myself.
The people are weird, but fun at the same time.
Yeah, we were with this guy this whole time in this kind of crappy vehicle, and
okay, I'm cutting you off. It's not crappy. It's a Honda Ridgeline. Shut up.
That's okay. You see, when you look up Honda Ridgeline in the dictionary, the definition says "see crappy," and then
I don't know
no,
if that's really accurate. I think you're making it up.
I've never made up anything in my entire life, but I will say it did get us all the way there, and it got you back. So,
I mean, so the guys that I were with, I would describe them as a wannabe Johnny Depp and Craven the Hunter kind of dude.
which one's the wannabe Johnny Depp?
You look like
Fear and Loathing.
What's that movie, the Rum Diary or whatever, with Johnny Depp? They go to Vegas. That's how you're kind of dressed right now, Eli.
You mean Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas?
I thought I said Fear and Loathing.
Oh yeah. Rum Diary. I'm thinking of another movie. Am I?
Well, the Rum Diary. Okay, so fun facts here. Ready?
Okay, Eli knows this. This is a good story.
Okay, so Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas was written by Hunter S. Thompson, and so was The Rum Diary, and both of them starred Johnny Depp as the character, as the author, Hunter S. Thompson. So I don't know.
That's why I got confused. That's why I got confused.
And I don't know. I keep running into you, and I'm thinking about Hunter S. Thompson all the time, and I keep running into you out in the forests. And I don't know if it has anything to do with each other.
It probably does. I mean, there's got to be a correlation there.
Tate, okay. I have an actual question for you. Tell us about this orb.
Ooh.
I know we're jumping way in the middle of the story, but
yeah.
Let's preface it a little bit.
Do you want to talk about each individually, or do you want to just jump into it?
Let's just jump into it. Yeah, I mean,
just preface it. Preface the orb. What was the context?
Yeah, you start with the context, and I'll just go into it.
Okay, so basically, we were camping with Stacy Brown Jr. and his crew, RPG and James Brost, out there at their spot for a couple of nights, and it was actually the first night that we went out with Stacy and them that we're going to do what Stacy said was fishing. It's called fishing, where we pull up to a location, hang out for a little bit, see if anything's happening, and move to a different spot. Well, we ended up not moving to a different spot because we got stuff happening in the first spot. So apparently knocks were heard. Me and Alex didn't hear or experience anything that night. So
we were up the stakes a little bit further. We had divided into two groups. The idea was one would move forward kind of aggressively, and the other group would kind of hang back. So Eli and I were with Stacy, so we just kind of were the forward group.
So yeah, you guys were gonna go, I think, 5 minutes ahead of us with lights on. Then James RPG and I were gonna follow about 5 minutes later, lights out. Seeing if something was gonna interact with us as we're walking towards you guys. And sure enough, I think about less than a minute of walking from the car, we get a knock off to our right, clear as day. And then we all stopped and we were like, "Did you guys hear that?" And we're like, "Yeah, I heard that." And everything. It's the clearest knock I've ever heard. And then we're walking probably another minute, and then off to our left, we heard another knock, exactly the same as that first one we heard. We were like, that's when we radioed you guys and asked if you heard anything, and you guys "Oh, we didn't hear any knocks or nothing like that." And we walked a little bit further, not doing anything. Then we decided to do a knock and let you guys know we were going to do it. And I don't think we got anything after that. Eventually, we met up with you guys down the road. You were with Stacy and then a few other people. And then we kind of switched the roles this time. This time we walked back with our lights on, and you guys walked back in the dark. Mm-hmm. And it's when we got back to the cars, we were kind of waiting on you guys to walk back. We did a knock while we were waiting. I think I radioed you guys to let you know we were going to do that. And then in the meantime, after doing the knock, RPG is talking to Marty, which Marty stayed with the cars as all of us hiked up the road early on. So we got back to the cars where Marty was. RPG was talking to Marty. James and I were kind of behind Stacy's car talking after I did the knock. And we're looking kind of into the forest. And all of a sudden we see like a baseball size bright blue light kind of fly horizontally into the forest and disappear. And it was definitely not a shooting star because it was not above the tree line. It was kind of in the mid, like in that middle zone of the tree line. And it wasn't a flashlight because there was nobody over there. And it was just forest and water and stuff. So we told you guys as soon as you guys got back to the car, and Stacy's like, dude, I've never seen them here before. That's freaking cool. And I mean, like, what would you, it was like, to me, I don't know what it was. It was the weirdest thing. And I showed you guys, or I played the audio for you guys because I was recording audio, and you can hear our genuine reaction to it. And it was not like we were faking anything. We definitely saw something. And I don't know what you guys thought when you heard the audio, but I'm curious.
I mean, it sounded genuine, but like, I don't doubt your story at all. I don't know, dude. That's so wild to me. It's like all this stuff happened and I didn't hear any of it. I feel like I got left out. The Sasquatch, they didn't want me to know. But even then, that goes to show, I think that goes to show, even like the knocks that you heard that Aleks, Stacy, and I didn't hear. We were only 5 minutes up the road. We didn't hear it. You know, granted, we were talking and walking. Sure, but we didn't hear it.
We were not that far.
You know,
see, that's what's crazy. I mean, they were loud. I don't know how you guys wouldn't been able to hear them. And we were hearing Marty do like calls from the car from where we were, and we hiked a good ways, I would say, right? Like a mile, maybe.
Well, here's the weirdest part, right? When you guys did your knocks, we could hear those.
That's what's
That's
strange.
true.
Remember, Eli? Like,
I do remember that.
So I don't know what's up with that.
Well, where we heard the knocks is pretty much by the cars.
Yeah.
And then when James RPG and I did the knock, we were probably halfway to you guys at that point. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it. Probably we were closer than the knocks originally, but still, you guys were only 5 minutes ahead of us. You guys couldn't have been all the way over to where you guys were when we met up with you. So that doesn't make sense either. And it was loud too. Like the three of us heard it and stopped and looked at each other. We're like, did you guys hear that? And it was clear as day. It sounded just like the knocks I was doing. I don't know. And you had the audio on my car recording, so I don't know if it maybe picked it up or not. I'm really hoping it did, because that would be really cool to hear.
Yeah. I haven't checked that audio yet. We, as soon as we got back from the trip, we basically started editing Sawgrass Skunk Ape. But we're going to be looking at that audio soon here. I'm really curious as well to see what, if it's loud enough, we should be able to hear it, no problem. I mean, the audio recorder was not moving. It was on top of the car. There shouldn't be any distortion or anything. So
there was no wind that night too to make any kind of. It was just a dead night. Yeah, freezing.
It was a weird occurrence, man. I mean, you seemed pretty surprised, I'd say, and we kind of ran through the motions with you, like, oh, what it could have been, whatever. You're asking you questions about it, and you're not like a orb person or paranormal or into that kind of stuff. So for you to see that, is kind of interesting, and hear your perspective on what that was. I mean, it was something strange in the woods. I mean, and I'll ask you again. I mean, do you think that could have been some sort of a human-made light or something, or what?
No, this thing was like fast, and if I had to guess a height on it, it was probably 10, 11, 12 feet tall, maybe, or up in the trees, possibly even higher. And I mean, unless somebody was standing out in the trees and forest, we didn't see them, and they had like a stick with a light on it and was moving it back and forth like that. There's no way it could have been that. I mean,
it seems like a lot of effort for that.
It's a lot of effort, and I don't know how you could fake an orb either. I I mean, the only thing I can think you could fake an orb is a laser pointer, but then you would see the beam of light. And then how would you get a
there's
ball
something
that
going
big?
on. I mean, doesn't necessarily mean it's Bigfoot related, but it's just something weird going on in the woods. I heard the reaction. You guys seem genuine. I don't think you have any reason to make that up. And I talked to James too, who also witnessed it, and he said that was one of the weirder things he's seen too.
I think the fact that both of us saw it at the same time. There was two people. It wasn't just one person seeing one thing.
And I do got to point out on the audio with the reaction, it wasn't like you or one of you guys blurted out, "Oh, do you see that orb?" And the other one said, "Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about." You guys kind of independently were just saying, "Whoa, what is that?" I don't remember exactly what was said, but you basically had both kind of got caught off guard at the same time, and were obviously kind of in the moment cussing because you're seeing something you weren't really familiar with. So the reaction was genuine. Whatever it was, I mean, I don't know. I really don't, but there's a common theme of weird orbs seen in the woods. I mean, all over the place. So maybe that's some kind of weird natural phenomena. I don't know.
And I want to make a point to say, like, I do the same thing. You kind of get this thing when you see something on YouTube, like one of those Beyond the Trails or something. Like, these guys are faking it and they don't mean it. They're all hoaxing.
Right.
I kind of get that when I see other people doing documentaries too, because maybe I wasn't there, even if I know them too, or if I don't know them, like, they're probably making it up, but you weren't there, and these are,
I get that feeling.
This has genuinely happened. I have no reason to make it up.
Eli, go ahead.
I get the hoaxing feeling anytime I see the name Hieronymus on screen.
Oh, I get that feeling too.
No, but I hear what you're saying, Tate. I think it's like this is like really it happened. Like, something weird happened. We're not claiming to know what it was or anything like that. We just claim it happened, and it's a genuine incident. We didn't do this just to make the episode more exciting. I don't know when this episode's even coming out, so we have no reason to do that. It was something weird that happened when we were out there with knocks and other weird stuff going on. I mean, we didn't ask for that to happen. We usually go into these situations thinking nothing's probably going to happen. Most of the times when you're in the woods, you have occurrences with natural or, other wildlife. That's about it. If that. But so it was unusual. And will we find out what it is? I have no clue.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't say. I don't, like you said earlier, I'm not an orb guy. I'm not into that. I don't believe in orbs, but it was weird to see that nonetheless. I can't explain it.
You saw an orb.
I did see it. I did. I saw it.
Seeing is believing.
I see you, but I don't think you're real.
That's like attributing, like a connotation or attributing a motive to the orb. I mean, the way you're referring to an orb, Tate, is probably like orbs in relation to the Bigfoot stuff. That's what a lot of people talk about. Whereas, I mean, this is just an orb. Like, you don't know what it was.
I mean, okay, in the sense that we heard knocks earlier that night, and then we saw an orb later. Some might say that was relation to Bigfoot. I think it's its own separate thing, personally.
Yeah, some might say that. I mean, it could be or it could not be. I'm just saying, it's like the word orb has like a dirty connotation to it. Or not dirty, but it has a sort of connotation, controversial, because it's lumped in. Whereas, I mean, you could just see an orb in the woods and not see anything or not hear knocks or have anything, Bigfoot typical happen and just say, I saw an orb in the woods. So,
yeah,
I mean kind of hypothetically speaking.
It kind of irritates me when people put the two and two together like there's all one and the same. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird, but I do want to talk about like some of the cold nights that we had, because it was really, wasn't it record cold for Florida that winter?
Yes.
Let's talk about some of these freezing nights. How were we prepared for that? I mean, we thought it was good. We knew it was going to be cold, but not that.
Yeah, that's the thing. I went into it thinking, well, I've camped in Florida before in January, And by no means does it get crazy cold, but I've been camping before when it was in the 30s at night. So, it's like a light jacket and you definitely want to stay warm. But we experienced record cold in Florida. It was the coldest temperatures they'd had in 4 years. I mean, we had a couple nights in a row where it got down into the low 20s. Like we're talking 23, 24 degrees. And that's cold camping anywhere. So I don't think we're necessarily prepared for that. We really only had one day where it was plus 70 degrees in that 70, mid 70 range. I think there's one day I wore shorts. Everything else was in the 50s or in the 60s, mostly in the 60s. But then we had those cold days where it was just in the 40s during the day, and then at night dropped 20 degrees. So it was really all over the place. As we thought it was going to be, the Everglades is going to be real warm. As we get up towards Tampa area, it'll still be nice and warm, but a little bit colder. Ocala will get colder. The Panhandle will get colder. As we made our way north, we thought it'd be, gradually colder, but it just kind of went not as planned.
No, Georgia was warmer than Florida.
Yeah,
it was weird, and it was raining. It was so bizarre.
But
now,
I'm not really sure what changed for you, Tate, because you were going to sleep in your car the whole time anyways.
I did though. I did sleep in my car the whole time.
I know you did.
I slept in the tent a couple of nights here and there.
Camping with Tate is 3 a.m. You hear the car coming on.
I only did that because it was cold.
We had that propane heater kind of came in clutch a couple times when Alex and I used it.
Oh yeah. That I think that saved a lot of us, that propane heater, which was nice.
Little Mr. Buddy heater, right?
That thing is awesome.
Yeah.
No, okay, so the was it Sawgrass Skunk Ape came out not too long ago. And for people who don't know, Alex is a huge fan of mountain lions and panthers. He has a documentary called Lions of the East, and we found a Florida panther track. And I'm curious to the what's been people's responses with the LiDAR scan that we took over the track. Have you gotten any responses from that, and like what or anything?
So yeah, like not specifically that. That's just kind of been part of it. I usually send people pictures, and in the documentary we showed obviously the video and the pictures, and then your 3D scan that you got of it. And most people just think it's cool. I'll always get a couple of those comments where people say, "Oh, look at the claws. It's clearly a dog. Try better next time," or something snarky like that. And that happened initially when we first found it in January. I had posted about it only after I had talked to a number of people who, were pretty good at tracking animals. Even Amy Wu had actually passed it on to a couple of mountain lion experts as well that she was speaking with, and they said they thought it was mountain lion. We talked to people at the preserve, the Big Cypress National Preserve headquarters, compared it, cross-referenced, and I've since submitted that track find to the Florida Wildlife Commission and is now listed on their Florida Wildlife Panther tracking map, which is a completely citizen scientist kind of creation where people that have sightings of panthers or find tracks or evidence of kills, anything along those lines, they can send it into the Florida Wildlife Commission with the location of where it happened, the date, all that kind of stuff. And once they verify it, they post it on their website. So the Florida Wildlife Commission is on board with it. It's listed on their website. I believe it's one of the most recent sightings in South Florida. And it's significant because there's only the ballpark of 300 or so of these panthers still alive. They're a eastern sort of subspecies of the mountain lion, the Puma concolor, found across North America originally. Now their range is kind of limited towards the Rockies and westward, but the only real population in the east is down in the Everglades in South Florida, which is really interesting. You have to know the history of that area and how the fact that South Florida and the wilderness of the Everglades really was untouched for hundreds of years, even as Florida was settled by the Spanish Empire since the 1500s. Nobody really wanted to go into that deep swamp because it was just a miserable place. It wasn't until the last 200 years that people really started moving in there and trying to tame that environment. So you had an environment where the panthers could actually still thrive. They weren't hunted off like they were in the rest of the East Coast. So that was the significance of that discovery. But yeah, like I said, people will be smart and say, oh, it was definitely a dog. And they just, for people that think that, they need to go back and learn the fundamentals about animal tracks because yes, this track that we found multiples, but the best photo we have is the one that we posted and presented in the film. You can see claws visible but the way it was walking, but you need to look at the pad. The pad is larger than that would be on most canines. So people get really caught up on the toes, where in canine prints, you'll have toes that are detached mostly from where the toe pad is a little bit forward, whereas a cat that can retract its claws, if they do get found with their claws in a track, it'll be much closer to the actual toe pad that you'll see. And that's what happened on the front. Two claws are visible, and the right and left toes, there is no claw visible. It looks perfectly panther. So it was an awesome discovery. It was super exciting for me. And yeah, I mean, what did you guys think when we kind of came across that? I know our initial reactions, but what did you think about like the fact that we were able to find that is pretty rare?
Dude, yeah. First of all, we couldn't even, when Aleks, when you and I went back to collect the trail cams, we couldn't even find the spot. But on top of that, I wanted to speak more to the whole canine track thing, because it recently rained out here, and I live, on a 5-acre plot of land, and my dog loves the rain. I was out walking around in it. I was looking at her dried dog prints yesterday, and just like the canine print versus a feline print are totally different. And I guess I didn't know that going in. You were the one who kind of told me about that. And, but I was just looking for it yesterday, and I was just like, yeah, that's totally, you can't mistake the two,
No.
Very different. But
and I think people don't realize Birdman's law too. The animals are smaller the closer you get to the equator. And so you were talking, like, you guys saw that panther track in Washington, and it was huge compared to the one we saw. And
it was almost, so the one we found was about average for the Florida panther, which is slightly, not by a lot, but slightly smaller than mountain lions you'd have out west. Plus, I mean, they have larger food sources out west, but the track we had found in Florida was about 3 inches wide and 3 inches top to bottom. And I'm talking, from that toe to the back of the pad, that was the 3 inches, and right in that range. Whereas the track out in Washington was about 4 inches top to bottom, I believe, and also 3 1/4 wide. So bigger, definitely bigger. And the track that we found in Washington, we know was a male, adult male. So that would have been the largest, the large. The one that we found in Florida, perhaps, I mean, it's hard to tell with the tracks. I'm certainly no expert. It could have been a female, could have been a juvenile or younger one, or maybe just a slightly, almost adult sort of animal, because it wasn't that small for a Florida panther. It was well within the adult range. But again, I thought it looked small just initially because I was used to seeing bigger prints from out west. So, but I knew it was cat, like Eli said. I mean, you look at cat prints versus canine prints. The most distinctive thing is probably the pad. Canines tend to have a smaller, more triangular kind of pad, whereas felines, it's larger, and it's a little bit more sort of deviation in the way the pad looks. Plus, there's more of an X formation on canine prints. They're a little bit more, you can kind of draw an X, whereas on cat prints, you try to draw an X through it, and you'll end up crossing through some of the toes. So, it can change when they're moving, fluid motion, depending on the substrate. It can be deceptive, especially with all claws visible. So there's certainly, I've seen prints that are ambiguous, but that ours could not have been a cleaner print for that environment, which is 90% water. That was like the most clean type of print, as if you just took the track that you have casted and put it right in the mud as an example of a good print. That's what we had.
And I think to put it in perspective is, let's just use Bigfoot as an example, because that's what this is about.
Sure.
When you're looking for Bigfoot, that's to see one is rare. To find a track is rare. Now, the Florida panther down there, for people who don't know, is one of the more rare species of cat in all of Florida. And we found a print, which is pretty cool. And we were doing some research, and we were seeing that like the bobcats there are about the size of a house cat.
Yeah, very small.
So
they're basically rarer than mountain lions or Florida panthers in the preserve. That's what we were told multiple times, that it'd probably be more rare to find a bobcat track than it would be to find a panther track in the Big Cypress area, because that just seems to be the dominant cat down there is the Florida panther, which again still is rare. I mean, I talked to researchers and people who've been down there camping for years, never seen a panther. Maybe they'll see one or two in their lifetime, just get lucky. And others just don't ever see them because they're just an elusive animal that's out there, and you have to be really in the right place at the right time. And I think connecting that sort of the Bigfoot topic, from even before the trip, I was looking at the way that Florida, the state of Florida, monitors the panthers, as I mentioned, primarily with data gathered from the public. They rely heavily on the public to see patterns of where these animals are. And then I started talking to Scott of the Bigfoot Mapping Project, and we incorporated that in the film as an approach, and not beyond just the filmmaking aspect of it. I think it's a valid method to look at possible sightings, because again, Florida is using public data to track the mountain lion species, and we have all these sightings, history of sightings throughout that area, throughout other parts of North America. Why not use that public data in a manner that a single eyewitness sighting might not be, it may be exciting, maybe a good story, but unless you find direct evidence connected to that sighting, that happened maybe recently, a sighting from 30 years ago is largely not really that useful. But when you get 30 sightings, you can plot them on a map and say, all right, maybe are there any patterns here, and go from there. So I think the parallel between the way the Florida panther is studied and the way we can approach the Bigfoot topic with data gathered from the public, I think it's a good example of what to do. And it's not just sighting chasing, it's using that data to kind of make somewhat of a realistic expectation of when you go into an area that has a history of sightings. And as Cliff Barrickman will say, if there's the resources are there, why would the Sasquatches leave? If an area can still support them, why would they go into other areas? And Big Cypress Preserve in the Everglades certainly can support a whole host of animals out there. So,
well, as we were leaving, we saw a black bear cross the road. So
right.
we know there's food for animals that size. I mean, given the area. So you got mountain lions there, and you got bears there. You got
alligators, crocodiles,
the pythons too. You got some big animals down there, and there has to be some serious food around. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to live there comfortably.
Absolutely. So, yeah, it's a very unique environment just because of the amount of biodiversity there. So I think, just like I said, if the resources are there and they've remained there, if there was a sighting in an area 30 years ago and there was a sighting there 10 years ago in the same general area, there could be a more recent one. You don't know, but it's just, they could be possibly there or possibly not. So it gives us maybe just a little bit of a way to hone in on an area without just taking a sort of shot in the dark in an area where they could be anywhere. At least kind of you get a little bit more of a perspective. So that's where I think the Florida panther parallel kind of goes with the Bigfoot phenomena.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with that. And we've all seen bear before in person. Then I've only seen one mountain lion in Ojai walking off the road when I was driving up the road at night. And I, no pun intended, but I caught the tail end of this thing walking off into the brush. It's like, dude, that's so freaking cool. I've never seen a cat like that before. That's like the first time I've seen a cat in the wild. Thankfully, when I was driving, not walking. But this same episode of Beyond the Trail, we were kind of walking down this road. To go back to the Bigfoot topic, we were walking down this road, and we did a knock, and we were kind of sitting around. Eli was actually filming that, and we heard a response which sounded like a knock. What did you guys think about that?
Eli, go ahead.
I don't know. It really did sound like a knock to me. I mean, I guess for me it's difficult because I don't know the area. I don't know what could make that noise, because every kind of environment's got its own thing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, I just don't know what else it could have been. I don't want to say it was a knock because we didn't get any activity, but I don't know. I really don't know.
It's tricky. I mean, we almost kind of stumbled upon it because when it happened, we thought, oh, wow, that was pretty interesting. And then, as the trip went on, so many other things happened. We kind of fell on the wayside, that incident. And then when we were editing the episode, I was going through and just rewatching a section that Eli happened to edit, which was us doing that night investigation in the Big Cypress area. And I heard that knock and I said, wow, okay, this is interesting. I didn't come across it before. And it really is interesting because Tate does a knock, and those trees down there, you got to understand there's a lot of, in the area we were in particular, with cypress trees. So the Big Cypress Preserve is basically a large cypress swamp that has sunken prairies. And then when the elevation changes about 3 feet from the sunken prairie areas, you'll have a little bit drier area where it'll be like a pine hardwood forest. So there's not a lot of types of trees down there as there would be, say, in a more deciduous forest in the Appalachians or other parts of the country. Cypress trees are one of the only trees in that area in particular. And when you happen to do a knock on them, they have a very distinct, loud kind of sound to them. So Tate had done this knock, and a few minutes go by, and then there was a single kind of response knock, and I'll just call it a knock because it sounded like that. And when I replayed it, the characteristics of that knock were very reminiscent of what Tate had just done. They didn't sound like something breaking or falling into the water. And my thought was, hey, something, if a limb is breaking or something falling in the water, I mean, I don't know how it would have made such a loud noise as if you were to take something and whack the side of a tree. And then that gets into the issue of, could it have been a human being responding to our knock? And of course, that's possible, but I personally think highly unlikely based on the area. And unfortunately, I don't want to reveal exactly where that area is, but it's in the Big Cypress Preserve, and it's a trail that has definitely it's near an area that's had a history of sightings and that sort of stuff. And we were the only ones parked there. We walked into an area, and this trail just will come to an end. It doesn't continue on. All around it is just wilderness. You have to drive miles and miles and miles, half an hour to get back to the main road from that area. It's one road in, basically a straight road that goes on for miles. So the chances that somebody else was out there and we were out there for hours on end, somewhere on this trail that we would have seen them because we basically went to the end of it almost. I don't know. It just seemed very unlikely that somebody would be out in that type of environment, walking around at night with all the deadly animals that are out there. It seemed really unlikely to me.
Because there's moccasins and gators and stuff like out there. And we were seeing this where we had our car parked. There was gators all over.
Yep.
And it's like you said, maybe it could have been something breaking a branch like a bear, because we know there's bears in the areas. But I think if that was the case, you would have heard of maybe some kind of, if there was water around, a splash or something.
Right.
Or if it was a gator hitting its tail against the water or something like that. I don't know. It doesn't.
It was distant. Whatever this sound was, quite distant. If you listen to the knock that you do, Tate, or any other knocks we did that night, and compare it to the sound of that response, they're very similar in that sort of like very hard hit, echoey almost sound. Yep. Whereas a branch break, I think it would have had to have been closer. I mean, that was even when we heard it, we thought that was really not close at all. That was pretty far out.
Yeah,
it just didn't sound like a branch break. You know, I feel like a branch break has totally a different sound to it.
It really does.
You know, it's less clear out.
It was as if, I had gone quarter of a mile or a mile away or something and did a knock. It was like I was imitating Tate. Like that's sort of the sound. It really did sound very similar. And that was the only thing we heard.
The same knock, but very distant.
That was the only unusual thing we heard that whole night.
Yep, and that's usually how it goes sometimes if you get activity.
Yeah. It's just like one and done kind of thing.
It's like, man, I want more than just that. But that's how it goes and everything. Right. But now this is Bluff Creek related, this podcast. So now that it's been about almost a year, I would say, kind of had time to simmer in, and the stuff that happened in Bluff Creek, in my opinion, of all my years going up there, that's the most active it's ever been. And not only just active in one night, but multiple nights the whole time we were there. Now that you guys have had a chance, probably more to think about it or not think about it, just whatever. What are you guys thinking now versus when we were talking about it when it was fresh?
I mean, I'll go first and let Eli take over it. I just think that there were some things that happened there that I can't explain. I mean, it's possible that it was all completely coincidental, and that sort of Bigfoot magic, Bluff Creek, it's sort of a Bigfoot mecca. We all go there to experience that Bigfoot sort of magic. Maybe that affected it and made seemingly insignificant incidents seem more significant than they were. But I don't necessarily think that, because they were all just very unusual. The series of events, and whether it be the whoop or the way that Bandit the dog was behaving right before this mysterious whoop that nobody in camp can attest to, or this weird rock slide, the occurrences in Laird Meadow, Eli's strange dream. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it, but I know it was something very unusual. And, we weren't the only ones that had weird stuff happen. Obviously, Jonathan Easley was there. We had other folks around as well. So there's a history of sightings around Louse Camp. So it kind of makes sense to me that, maybe something was in there checking us out.
I think it was really weird. What do you think, Eli?
I don't know. I think about that trip a lot. I think about all the weird things that happened there, that weird ball of light that we saw in a weird dream. And I don't know what it all means, I guess, is my brain is trying to search for what does it mean? What does it all mean? And I can't figure that out. And I definitely think there's Sasquatch there. And I think we encountered a couple of them, even though none of us saw them. But, there's that whole spiritual aspect, that almost paranormal aspect to it that I think is really is unique to that area. There's a lot of, to steal Leiterman's words, there's a lot of energy there, and we could all feel it, especially in Louse Camp, you can feel it, and I just happened to dream about it, and I don't know, it's weird.
I mean, it's like that place sort of it plays tricks on you in a way, Louse Camp. I mean, everyone talks about the babbling brook and the water that makes sounds and children laughing or, whispering, how you can't hear anything in there. But then you have this history of weird sightings. I mean, Bobo, other people, Kip having his incident there, Tate with, something walking around, whether or not that was sleep paralysis or not. But that strange sound that Jonathan Easley captured that he'd never heard and no one in camp heard. And the fact that I was the only one in camp that heard this unusual whoop noise as I was at the edge of camp after this incident with Bandit the dog. It's like that place just plays tricks on you. As soon as in the daytime, it's a cheerful, awesome place with beautiful scenery and that incredible creek to swim in. And as soon as that veil of darkness falls in, it's like this mystery sets in. And we talk so much about the difference between that and being even at the PGF site, where the spookiness, even though you're in an area where we know there's mountain lions and bears, tons of bears walking through on a regular, thanks to the Bluff Creek Project camera traps, tons of animals right where we found mountain lion scat 10 feet from where we were camping.
It's called Bear Highway.
So and the creepy factor was just not there, as opposed to Louse Camp. There's almost like this feeling of vulnerability in Louse Camp. Even though we can get out on a car and get out of there if we want to, and if you're sleeping at the PGF site, you have to hike back up. But I just did not feel that creepiness down there. I don't know.
Louse Camp was weird, and I was telling Robert Leiterman that yesterday. I was like, you can drive to Louse Camp, get out of your car, and sleep by your car if you wanted to, or in it. And it's still creepy.
Yep.
And like you said, you have to hike in downhill and down, up the creek to the film site. And to hike out would be an hour or so. And it's not creepy, which is the weirdest thing ever. And I get that vibe every time I go to Louse Camp, and I feel more comfortable at the film site alone than I do at Louse Camp alone. And it's really bizarre. I don't know.
It's a special place. It really is.
And then as far as the other stuff that happened, the rock slides, and I've driven that I've been going there since 2016. Twice a year until 2018, and I've driven that rock slide area where we were at, dozens of times or more. Never had that happen, not once. And I've walked over there before, never happened. And that one time we go in there, it happens. And then we hear the thing walking in the creek. That's really odd. And things like you said, Laird Meadow, something was thrown or something happened that was directed towards us. And then we had that knock further off in the distance in that same direction. It's like there's nobody out there. It's just nothing but wilderness. The road's over on the other side of where we're at.
Yeah.
Unless somebody's
unusual. It would be weirder for somebody to be hiding out there in the woods in the middle of nowhere waiting for us to come by to throw stuff at us. That would be weirder than a Bigfoot being out there, honestly.
Yeah, and there was no lights. We didn't see any lights out there. And it's for someone to walk in the dark out there with no lights in that kind of terrain alone.
Yeah, it's not smart.
It doesn't make sense. And we're pretty well armed when we go out there. So, yeah, who knows? It keeps me going over there still to this day.
Oh, it's a special place. It really is. I mean, and that just knowing that's one of the last places that was moved into, and up until the 1950s was basically from the 1950s and before that for hundreds of thousands of years, I guess. I don't know how long those forests have been there. A long time, pretty much untouched. I mean, you had some Native American groups in there, of course, but it was not settled like many of the other even parts of the West Coast where there was a human presence there. That was one of the last places to go in and get logged. And 50 years, 1950s, late 1950s to today, I mean, it's really not a long time. I mean, you're looking at 60 years essentially.
Yeah, that's not a long time at all.
Right.
Yeah.
We're kind of approaching an hour, so kind of before we wrap up, I want to ask you guys about some more of the STM Beyond the Trail projects coming up. We have 4 episodes left in the can to edit and put on YouTube.
That's correct.
Yeah. I don't know anything about those.
So, and then you guys have some more coming up that you're going to go out and film here in a few months. I want to talk about that a little bit, as much as you can and cannot.
Yeah, we've got, so basically we have 4 coming out based off of what we talked about with Florida, Georgia sort of expedition. It's going to be the Green Swamp area of, kind of north of Tampa. There's the fabled Green Swamp. A lot of Bigfoot sightings and axe murders and really horrific stuff has happened in that area. Long history of creepy, spooky killings and that sort of stuff. And then we went to the Ocala National Forest, and then we've got the Panhandle of Florida with Stacy Brown and those guys. And then we went to North Georgia. Those are 4 episodes that are to be released. Obviously, we're still working on them, but we have Sawgrass Skunk Ape is already out on the Small Town Monsters YouTube channel. And that one, you can go see. We were talking about the Panther Track and the Knock and all that stuff. But yeah, the next few months we'll be filming more. We have some plans for some pretty interesting stuff. I can only really talk about one of them. I'll say Alaska. There's probably going to be multiple Beyond the Trails that come out of that, as well as there's a On the Trail of Bigfoot. One of the kind of STM flagship kind of productions. There's going to be other stuff as well. A lot of stuff we're hoping to do and get to, but that's just sort of for now what we can kind of disclose, I guess.
Yeah, I'm trying to talk you guys into going to a few areas myself.
For sure.
Yep, and it's not going to work, Tate.
Shut up, Eli. Shut up, Eli. It's going to work, or I will hold you hostage in my crappy truck.
You gotta give me slack here. Hieronymus is in your last name. So anything you recommend is immediately within suspicion.
Grain of salt, yeah.
I'll show you a grain of salt.
Oh my God.
No.
So stupid.
What about the Bigfoot project? I'm sure we could talk about that. I wasn't there for it, but Alex, you certainly were. There's a new episode of the Bigfoot project coming out, and you're in it.
Yeah, there's a new episode that I believe just came out. I guess I'm also going to be in this one that I'm here in Ohio now. We just kind of filmed a little bit. We were out in the woods, and not a lot happened, really. but this area has a history of sightings. So yeah, that's sort of another interesting look at it. It's a little bit more stationary. It's looking at one property in Minerva, Ohio. Well, we have a Beyond the Trail about that as well, called the Monster of Minerva, which really sort of an introduction to this whole case that Seth and these guys have been working on. There's just a lot of weird stuff going on out in this neck of the woods in the part of Ohio that has a long history of sightings. So that's interesting. But yeah, aside from that, I mean, like I said, Beyond the Trails, we have a lot of plans for a lot of Beyond the Trails. I mean, we're talking, I guess I'll just give an example of a few other ones. I know I said I couldn't talk about them, mostly just because I don't know when they're going to be going on.
Just talk about mine. Just talk about mine.
Yeah, so we want to get to Tate's possible thermal Bigfoot site in the mountains outside of Los Angeles, which is just a cool area. There's a history of sightings and reports in that area. We're hoping to do some Washington State kind of stuff, possibly a canyon, of course, is always a big one. Then we've got some stuff I want to do on the East Coast, primarily New Hampshire, as well as Vermont, looking at the old story of the Wood Devils in northern New Hampshire and other locations as well. We just are trying to figure out, where the path will take us, because there's obviously so much we'd like to do, and it's tough to get out to everywhere, but we're trying to make it work.
Making it work is tough. I got my new project, the film project I'm doing, hopefully this July, bumping Lake Sasquatch. I'm looking forward to doing that. We'll see where that takes me. And then, but Alex, you have a YouTube show. You want to give people the name of that?
Yeah, my YouTube channel, Sasquatch Out of the Shadows, do a weekly live stream at 8 p.m. Eastern, talking to various folks. Tate and Eli are obviously on the show a lot. Lots of other folks. Just had Robert Leiterman on, of course, of the Bluff Creek Project, which is a lot of fun. I do other videos as well. A lot of it's connected to some of our Beyond the Trail stuff. So I don't want to say necessarily behind the scenes, but sort of adjacent to it. And we have a lot of discussions about some of the Beyond the Trail expeditions and stuff we go on, because, it's a process. We go out there to create films that are trying to take the subject seriously. And we're serious about the research. We're not just creating these films for entertainment. We're 100% serious. I mean, we'd probably be doing this with or without the cameras, this just gives us a reason to kind of poke around and document it even more so than maybe we would if it was just with no cameras. We might just be taking notes and pictures, but this way we have cameras rolling the whole time. So we're serious about it. I mean, we just try to give the subject and the Bigfoot topic a little bit more of a serious look than perhaps network TV and some other entities do, where there's a lot of faking and hoaxing and that kind of stuff that goes on. So we really try to lend some credibility. I'm not a scientist, none of us are really credentialed, but we try to talk to the right people, and that includes following up with scientists and other folks that are much more knowledgeable in certain fields that can just ultimately help us hopefully document stuff that we found in the field and get them to the proper people to look at it and maybe validate or invalidate, the results. And we're obviously open to being proved wrong, of course. And I think that's just sort of our approach.
That's a good way to look at it. And for people who are just wondering, yeah, it's important to take yourself seriously, but it's important to enjoy it too and kind of have fun. So if you see that, it's not because we're not taking it seriously. We really do.
We like to goof off. You can't take yourself too seriously.
Yeah, if you take yourself too seriously, then you're not going to be serious. I think you're going to lose interest. And then, Eli, you have a podcast. You want to plug that in, my friend?
Yes. My show is called Cryptid Campfire. We talk about different cryptids every week, so we're not exclusively tied to kind of Sasquatch. Tate Hieronymus is on there. That was an awkward interview. But it's okay. Alex, have you even... Yeah, you've been on my show once.
I've been on like 4 times, yeah.
Wait. Oh, yeah, you have. Holy smokes.
So
I don't know.
I think we're the only ones that have done actual Cryptid Campfire episodes in front of a campfire on like multiple trips, yeah.
Yes, we have. You're right. So maybe there'll be more of those, but I would greatly appreciate it if you check that out.
For sure.
Thank you.
I need to come on there again and do another awkward interview. That's fun.
No, how about we do a not awkward interview?
How about we just do an awkward interview and you just try and do your best to be professional at it? All right. Well, never mind. Whatever. All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming on here and taking your time. And Alex is spinning a spoon on this. What is that? Magnet?
Yeah.
That was kind of cool, actually. I was
Yeah,
like,
it
whoa,
was.
how's he doing that?
Magic.
I thought it was just balance at first. I was like,
Telekinesis.
whoa. Whoa, look at that.
Now, I heard Craven the Hunter is pretty, mystical in Spider-Man, so it makes sense. But anyway, all right. Well, thanks, guys, again for coming on. Hope you guys have a good day.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks, Tate. You know what? It was great talking to you.
All right, you're done.
These canyon walls carry my tune. The only one to hear my song are the coyotes and the wolves. But if I dream